Up to this large railroad station come buses, taxis, and private cars, carrying people who are going to travel by passenger train. At the entrance to the station, the cars stop and the people get out. Thousands of people pass through here every day on their way to and from trains.
The American Railway was once the pinnacle of luxury travel and transportation, so what could have went wrong? In the early 1800s, construction began on a transportation system that would change the United States forever. Thousands of miles of the system allowed you to get on a train in Illinois and end up in Washington, D.C. In 1827, a railroad was created as a reaction to a need for trade further inland and to compete with the Erie Canal. During this, a group of 25 merchants and bankers led by Philip E. Thomas and George Brown concocted a way to move goods out of the city of Baltimore throughout the United States. The transportation system they created would be the first of its kind in the U.S., the B&O Railroad. At its peak in the 1940s, the B&O spans from Illinois to Washington, D.C., connecting to many other railways along the way. A person could travel across the country on one ticket, have a bed and a dining cart. Trains were very popular in the 1940s due to gasoline rationing, with names like the California Zephyr and the Silver Meteor. Originally, the B&O was all animal-driven. That was until Tom Thumb in 1829. This American-built steam engine could pull passengers and freight cars at 18 miles per hour. The Tom Thumb was subject to a legendary race with the horse and ended up losing due to a mechanical malfunction. However, before this, it was easily beating the horse. In 1829, at Montclair, the first freight and passenger train station was built. Throughout the years, trains grew in size and more tracks were built while other tracks were connected. The B&O plan transformed into one of the first railways in the United States, which expanded during the Civil War. After the Civil War, everything changed. A transcontinental railroad by Union Pacific was built, changing the country forever. Further expansion and transportation of new goods by magnates like Cornelius Vanderbilt continued. As the automobile became mainstream, the train's popularity faded even more. After going through bankruptcy, the Pennsylvania Railroad gained control over the B&O. In 1901, the control over the ICC, or Interstate Commerce Commission, passed the Hepburn Act limiting rates on trains, bottling up any profitability as the trucking business grew. It looked like this was the end for the railroad, until in 1939 war broke out in Europe, and a few years later, the United States joined. World War II had an unforeseen impact, gasoline rationing, which brought back railroads from the brink of obscurity. This spiked revenue for passengers and freight. The train would include sleeper cars, dining cars, kitchens, etc. The dining car was trendy with passengers. It included dishes such as new potatoes and cream. They even hosted a Thanksgiving meal on the train for travelers. This didn't last long though. Gas rationing ended and railways faded because they were unable to change due to continuing ICC regulation enforcement and highway improvement as the other countries continued on. In 1963, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad gained financial control over the B&O. This was followed by conglomeration over several other railroad companies, ending in the creation of CSX in 1980. 10 years before, in 1970, following the bankruptcy of several railroad companies, the government created the corporation Amtrak. This marked the end and a transition to heavy impacts on freights. This also marked the end of ICC regulation on freight. This was the beginning of the end for the innovations seen in past years since a transition to an emphasis on freight. While other countries upgraded to high-speed railroads, the United States Railroad stagnated, unable to change. We'll just have to wait and see what the future holds in store.